Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Hurt, you want to respond to that and bring us up to date?
Um, Mr. Chair, that's the purpose of this meeting. I would hope during the course of this meeting, some of his questions and concerns would be addressed. So as we go through this, I think that if in fact there's a question that he has at the end of this, he should bring that question forward and we will try to see if we can find an answer.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So we're at the point now of discussion of contracting for Heron Estates family, phase 2. Mr. Hurt?
Yes. Good evening, commissioners and all those visitors in the public. At our last board meeting, our board had several concerns regarding the contracting as it related to Heron Estates family, phase 2 of their Heron Estates development. As a result, I was directed to contact the Housing Trust Group and present to them some questions and concerns. Namely, we wanted to know the names of the Section 3 and local participation contractors that have submitted bid proposals. We wanted to know the status of those submissions. We wanted to know the listing, the number of contractors that also submitted proposals against those proposals of the local participation contractors and Section 3 contractors. And we also requested a time and place that the Riviera Beach Housing Authority could meet with the principals for phase 2, the general contractor. As a result of that, Mr. Brian Finney of the Housing Trust Group provided a response to the board directed to Chairman Jackson on July 23rd, which I distributed among the commissioners, that provided a narrative that included a background and project update. In addition to that, he provided a document regarding the MBE contractor updates. I provided those to all of the commissioners. Hope they had the opportunity to review, and at this point in time, if they had any questions. We have Mr. Brian Finney present, as well as Mr. Jason Larson present from the Housing Trust Group. I've been in conversation with Brian Finney, and I've shared with you his follow-up, with the exception of our last conversation today, where I sent a follow-up email indicating that while they provided answers to question number 1 and number 2, they didn't provide a response to number 3, the listing the number of contractors that also submitted proposals, and number 4, time and place that the Riviera Beach Housing Authority could meet the principles of phase 2. Mr. Finney responded and indicated that the response to number 4, that they would set up a meeting with the general contractor and that would be scheduled. We had a later conversation this afternoon where Mr. Finney indicated that if the information as it relates to those other subcontractors that submitted proposals, at this time, he wasn't comfortable in disclosing it in a public forum. However, he will gladly meet with staff and go over those listings and or 1 or 2 board members who would represent the Housing Authority. So having said that, Mr. Chair, I think at this point in time, if the commissioners have reviewed the responses, they can ask questions, or you can ask Mr. Finney at this point in time whether or not he would want to make any sort of opening response.
At this point, any board members have any responses?
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Go ahead.
in reading the documents that were sent to us, I saw Mr. Burgess, who asked for the extension, and in the past, and was not granted an extension, because we all believe that to have a level playing field, everyone has to put their bids in at the same time. But after reading the emails that I saw today, apparently he did not receive a proper code to be able to open up the bid documents, and therefore he was disenfranchised to a certain extent in getting his bid in on time. And if I would have known this, I would have supported going for an extent, granting him an extension.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Any other board member?
Chair,
Yes.
I just have a few questions. I would like to know to which extent all of these subcontracting opportunities are. I see there it says that it will be, there are jobs that will be supplemented by additional subcontracting opportunities. I just wanted to know what categories they would be under.
We'll let Mr. Finney cover that when he began to, in his brief to us. And I would ask that Mr. Finney covers Mr. Spiritus' issue as well, unless you want to speak to it, Mr. Hurt. I understand that Ron Davis, who is Mr. Davis on the call?
He was, let me see if he's still here. There's a couple more people I have to admit.
So he's there. Mr. Davis?
I'm here, yes.
Yeah. So I know that your group was working with the gentleman as he was trying to get his bid in, I understand. And did you also find that that there was difficulty with him responding and based solely on the technical issue? Is that correct? Or
We did have a technical issue, but that issue was corrected by HTG, and also along with that, the contracts were given some additional days because of the technical issue. I think Mr. Burgess' request came even after additional time was granted.
Mr. Spears, does that solve your I understand it as well?
Yes, that I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
So at this time, does any other commissioners have anything? If not, I'll let Mr. Finney, can you want to lead off? Mr. Finney?
I'm sorry.
How are you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the board, and good evening to the public who are participating in this event. I'd like to start off by putting in the record a paragraph from the documentation that I sent you, and at that point in time, with your permission, we can have a discussion within the context of the information that I have provided to you for your review. It just notes that I had received your request for an update on our efforts to procure construction contractors for Heron Estates family. Please be advised that our process has not been finalized, although we are close to closure. We anticipate the issuance of a notice to proceed in the coming weeks. As noted by as noted to the Housing Authority on several occasions, we have received minority business bids from 4 companies: Brown Electric, Greener and Greener, D. Stevenson Construction, and Randolph Construction Group. This was an inclusive process in an attempt to make available work opportunities to MBE contractors. Working with our partner, the Mosner Group, we identified 9 MBE contractors who were qualified to bid on the project. These were as follows: Noyes Johnson, Brown Electric, D. Stephen Construction, Greener and Greener, New Bold Construction, Brown Star International, Miller Paradise Air Conditioning, Randolph Construction Group, and Farmers and Irwin Construction. Now, all of these companies at some point in time, to a certain extent, Mosner contacted them, and we were working with those groups. Of these 9 companies, only 4 chose to bid. Brown and Electric, Greener to Greener, Dwight Stephen Construction, and Randolph Construction Group. All 4 of these firms were awarded contracts or work opportunities. Greener and Greener would be offered a landscaping contract of $220,000. Dwight Stevenson was offered an $850,000 drywall contract. Brown and Electric, although he was not the lowest bidder on the electrical. We are now negotiating with him, participating on the electrical contract. And Randolph Construction, I'm having discussions with Randolph Construction on a potential project management assignment, as well as a subcontracting opportunity, which I'm not sure he's interested in. But yet and still, if all those things were to come to fruition, we would be giving contracts out to approximately about 1.5 in value. The important message here is that 100% of those who applied in our process were given work opportunities. And what we did is try to include people as opposed to exclude people. And I'm proud of the work we've done to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Finney. Mr. Davis, before I ask for any questions from anyone on the call, would you like to make a statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that the Mosnar Group, and particularly on the efforts of Walter Piercy, made a very coordinated effort to work with not only the local contractors but also with HTG contractors, through Brian Finney. We made as always, we made a very valiant effort to get everybody involved and included to get qualified, and we got mixed results. But I think that since I was involved in both phase 1 and phase 2, as far as minority contractors is concerned, I think the effort, the genuine effort of the developer was more pronounced this time than even the last time. So I think to that extent, I will give credit to Brian Finney and HTG for making a genuine effort to get minority contractors involved. And there are obstacles along the way. We've been involved in this for a long time, trying to get minority contractors involved, and some get involved and overcome the hurdles. There are always hurdles to minority contractors. I was one myself at one time. So I understand the difficulties, especially in trying to on the low bid process. So I think that Brian Finney did make a real effort to get everybody involved. Everybody may not be where they want to be, but certainly I think the intent was there, and in my estimation, the results are good.
Mr. Piercy, would you like to make a statement?
Well, I guess I'll reiterate what Ron said. The other thing I want to make clear is that a part of this process requires that we vet minority contractors, and there are minimum standards that have to be met: the business licensing, the bonding, professional certification or license in their area of expertise, references, insurance, and so forth. And so what we find periodically, well, in both of these projects, is that we can recruit as many contractors as we can find, but clearing that vetting process is difficult, and most drop out before they even get to the bid aspect of it. So if you see 9 who were recruited that passed the bidding process, and then 4 who actually bid, in most circumstances, and I'm sure this one as well, there are at least 10 more that were not able to complete the bidding process and simply just dropped out. So I want to reiterate what Ron said, is that the contractor made a much better effort. I'm sorry, the developer HTG, I personally believe, made a much better effort this time around than in the previous, having learned from the previous experience. And we focused in on those contractors who had attempted to participate before that did not get an opportunity to do work. I'd also like to add too that there will be an upcoming Section 3 effort once the project is underway. So in some respects, this process is not complete. We've just simply finished the first phase of it and brought in the prime subs, as opposed to other opportunities for work that will make themselves available once the project is up and running.
I'd open the floor to any board member that want to say something at this time. Do any of you have a comment?
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to say Mr. Brown from Brown Electric had the most, the concerns, and I wanted to know if his questions were answered and his concerns were addressed. That's it.
Before Mr. Brown speaks, and I'm going to come to you, Mr. Brown, so prepare yourself for any comments or questions you have. I want to say that when we started this journey, before the first shovel went in the ground, we made it very clear before we elected Mr. Finney's group, HTG, to be our developer on phase one. You know, our goal was to find as many minority contractors as possible and assist them on the journey of, producing to the point of being able to submit a bid. And it was our goal to utilize as many of them as possible. I wasn't totally happy with the first phase, and I'm going to be not totally happy here in the second phase. I'll speak again to that, but I'm going to yield myself to let Mr. Brown raise any issues that he may have or make any statements that he may have. Mr. Brown. Yes, sir,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Hurt.
Before Mr. Brown speaks, I just want to let you know we have several other participants that's been added to the meeting since you invited public comment. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And after Mr. Brown speaks, we had a hand raised from Commissioner Lockhart.
I'm going to hold Mr. Brown and go to Commissioner Lockhart.
I just had a few questions for Mr. Piercy. Usually what other opportunities are going to be made available once the construction starts? And then how can we ensure that the communication process is clear so that we will be able to prepare any other businesses so that they can pass the requirements to be submitted?
Okay, once the work actually starts, there are usually opportunities for additional subs to get involved. That would vary from discipline to discipline. We can't put a specific finger on it right now, but those work opportunities do appear. Now, during that part of the process, we actively promote outreach to contractors to say, okay, come on down, get your paperwork in order, apply for some potential work here, so you're on the list. In addition to that, there's Section 3 opportunities for individuals as well. So that doesn't really appear until after the actual construction starts, and you find out where the opportunities are. There could be shortfalls in labor over here, shortfalls in professional expertise here, and that's where you're going to go start looking for some additional subs. The important thing in that respect is to have those subs available and have them aware that those opportunities could present themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Spiritus.
I don't know who's going to answer this, but I was pleased to hear that you said individuals. There would be outreach to the individuals in the community as well. Are you going to Are you going to advertise? Are you going to go out? How are you going to do outreach for people in the community to get everything from laborer jobs to concrete jobs, whatever you have there as individuals?
If I may. Through the chair, Brian Finney Housing Trust Group. We're going to market the availability of jobs through a number of ways. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to enter into an arrangement with the Labor International Union. We're going to enter with the local union, Mr. Roll, and enter into an agreement where he can help us identify unskilled labor and subcontractors from River Beach to work on the project. That's one thing that we're going to do, as well as we're going to directly market the number of subs who we use on phase one. Hopefully they will be available to work on phase 2.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Spiritus.
All right. Mr. Finney, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're bringing the laborers union in. I've worked on jobs where the laborers union brought in people that were not members of the union and gave them union cards and actually made them full-time members of the union for future work as well. Is that going to happen here as well?
They do have an apprentice program, and that's normally what they do. And I am hopeful that our success in this part of the state will continue, because we've done over the last 5 years we've done 5 projects within a 30-mile radius of Riviera Beach. That's a lot of work. And if we have a relationship with the union, we can bring those folks from one project to the next. That's what I'm hoping for. And hopefully it will work out for us.
Okay, thank you.
If this is Ron Davis, if I may, through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In addition to both questions raised by Mr. Spiritus as well as Ms. Lockhart, is that, we would probably do similar to what we did last time. We actually, in the first phase, went to each council member and offered opportunity to help that council member establish an outreach event in their specific district, so that each can be accountable to their constituents as to their level of effort. And we will probably try that again, in addition to having a big general outreach event like we had at Wales Gymnasium last time, where the contract. No, we had it at the River Beach Housing Authority Administration Building, the old building on Congress, where the contractor came in with subs and met with subs, and we had an outreach event that was very successful. So it's both on, I think, the individual effort, though, we offer to work through every council member if they want that assistance or if they want to do it. And then we also have a general event.
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Lockhart.
This is for Mr. Davis. With these outreach events for each council member, did all council members agree? And you said that it was successful. So does that mean that they were well attended? And how were they marketed?
Well, it's relative. We're well attended, and when you get into this business of minority contractors, well attended may be 5 or 6 contractors. It's unusual to have a room full all at one time. But no, every council member did not participate. Those who did, we assisted them in getting the word out through flyers to their own constituents. And I think their experience there also helped them to understand how difficult it is to get people's attention when they say they want something and then you offer it to them, they're not willing to do what's necessary to take advantage of it.
Mr. Chair, may I just add to that comment? We did in fact hold meetings in every council member's district at that time, including the mayor. And I just would also want to remind the board that we are planning and have requested a joint outreach meeting with the general contractor and HTG and RBHA to take place either at the Ambassador Room or the Marina. So that is a request that's being planned as we speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Commissioner Lockhart, to better dial down on your question, you asked, did all the council members participate? There are some new council members now. So when we started this journey, we have some council members seated now that wasn't in office at that time. They had not run for office at that time. So in all fairness, I wouldn't want these council members or anyone on the call to take away from it that some of these council members were not there. That wasn't. Does anyone else have anything?
You had outreach, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, I will go to you now.
Thank you. So earlier today, I did reach out to Mr. Brian Finney, and I did speak to Mr. Finney in retrospect to this whole process. This is what I'm dealing with. This is my trouble. So I hear Mr. Finney stating numerous of times that my bid was high. My bid was, and I don't know, am I allowed to say what my number is, Chairperson?
Don't do it.
I'm sorry?
Don't say it, Ms. Dozier.
Yeah, don't say it. Just make your point.
So my point is, Mr. Finney is saying that my number is too high. I'm trying to have a clear understanding. I get it. This is a private-public partnership that a private developer is developing on public land, which is the taxpayers' land, which was being occupied by the housing authority. And with that being said, I would tend to want to believe that if my number was high, and it sounds that out of the 9 MBE or Section 3 contractors, I was the only one that was high, is what I'm hearing. Why is it that an opportunity wasn't given to me to negotiate, to see if that was my best number, to see if whether or not there were just no conversations in retrospect to that. The conversation was for me to come in and work up under someone else that no one still doesn't know who the other individual electrical contractor is, whether or not they were a Section 3, and also on whether or not I had the finances to do this job, whether I had the bonding capacity to do this job. And the conversation was, we didn't have a relationship. HTG and Brown Electric don't have a relationship. And that's the reason why they decided to go with another firm versus Brown Electric. Now, if we comparing apples to apples, you guys being the board, Mr. Hurt is the housing director. Why is it you guys cannot look at the contract and say, okay, Mr. Brown was high, Mr. Brown was not high. Can Mr. Brown bond this? There was no negotiations. HTG, through Brian Finney, has negotiated with everybody else but myself. And that's where my frustration more lies than anywhere else. Secondly, I'm reading through the emails and I see where he stated in the letter that he just read that D. Stevenson was awarded the drywall contract in the amount of $850,000. He put that dollar amount out there. In the email also chain, Randolph Construction submitted a drywall bid in the amount of $744,000. So if it's about money, why would you not go with Randolph Construction for the $744,000 contract versus going with D. Stevenson as $850,000, which is roughly about $95,000, $96,000 higher than what Randolph presented. So because there's a because there's a discrepancy in that number, that leads me to want to believe that there's a discrepancy in my number. And the only thing that I'm asking for is a fair trial. If I'm so high, why can't the numbers be disclosed? It doesn't have to be on a public forum, but why not have where myself, HTG, the housing authority, and look at my number versus the other guy's number?
Mr. Feeney, can you respond to that? Or anyone from HGT?
I can respond, and I'm on mute. And thank you very much for allowing me to respond. And I guess I do understand Brown Electric's frustration. I get that. I understand. Because the numbers are proprietary, it belongs to another company, I don't share them. Now, earlier today, I did have a discussion with Mr. Hurt, and I indicated to Mr. Hurt that we would open up our files and he would be able to look at all the bids in the process. I did tell Mr. Hurt, since he is a partner in the deal, if you will, what the difference was between the two bids. I do have the number. Earlier when I talked to several people, I hadn't looked at the bids in quite a while, so I wasn't quite certain that what the number was. I did have the number, I did have the discrepancy, and I do understand that. Relative to the issue with D. Stevenson and the drywall bid, I have to look into that. It did not, to be quite frank with you, I was so relieved that we had actually given the contract to a minority business that I didn't even challenge it. I was like, okay, good. Because my whole issue was when we were procuring this, I wanted to make sure that we did business with as many MBEs as we possibly could. And and again, I understand Mr. Brown's frustration, but what I will say is when I found out that he was not the lowest bidder on his item, and we were not selected to move forward with him, I went back to my team and said, I don't care what you do, I want Mr. Brown to work on this project and find a way, and we're negotiating that. But, let me talk about my comment on relationships. My comment to Mr. Brown on relationships was in the context of what I'd asked 2 years ago. Was I asked Mr. Brown and his company to please play a role on phase one. The idea was to get them on phase one so they could interact with my construction department. We knew who he was. He had a relationship, and we would build him on phase two. It's part of the process, and so I did say relationships, but I don't want to say it. I don't want to imply it was a negative discussion. It was a positive discussion in terms of what you need to do to build a relationship with us so we can move forward. That's all. That's what I meant by saying that. It wasn't just him. It was just a process that I tried to put him on 2 years ago.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Finney is absolutely right. But 2 years ago, I didn't deal with Mr. Finney. I dealt with Golf, the construction team. Is who I was dealing with at that time. And truth of the matter is, because that keeps getting brought up. Brown Electric was offered an opportunity 2 years ago. He didn't take it. Truth of the matter is, I'm very transparent. 2 years ago, Brown Electric wasn't in the best position to take on that opportunity. And Brown Electric decided to decline the opportunity, allow the individual who wanted to bid to do it. And that electrical contractor, which I still don't know who he is, phenomenal job on phase one. And I tip my hats off to that company, and I have the utmost respect. Because at that time, we just were not ready business-wise. Fast forward to now, we are ready financially, infrastructurally, and bondability. We are more ready and more than capable of doing this project now. So, I get it that, what happened 2 years ago. I can't keep looking at the past. I only look at what's right now. And what's in front of me right now is there's a project in Riviera Beach. I am a resident of Riviera Beach. My business is in Riviera Beach. Children live, play, and go to school in Riviera Beach. And we have a project here where my company is just as qualified as anybody else. We're a Section 3 firm, and everyone is talking about disparities and giving an opportunity. Here's an opportunity for a hometown hero to do work in his hometown, and we're being told that we have to come up under somebody else. And I also asked Mr. Finney, well, why that person can't work for me and I give them a contract?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Spiritus.
This is quite disturbing. I've been in the construction business, in all different angles, everything from developer to general contractor, on the government side and on the private side. If someone has a performance bond, the ability to come up with a performance bond, that's not an easy thing to be able to get. And that is protection to the general contractor. To not go out of our way to bring in a local general subcontractor or general contractor onto the project when we have an opportunity is disappointing. I think we have an obligation. I would hope that in the future, and maybe it's not too late now, I would request that HTG rethinks this and sits down with Mr. Brown and negotiates the number. I assume you're negotiating the number with other people. I would hope that you would give that opportunity to someone from the city of Riviera Beach.
Mr. Finney.
If I may.
Oh, just a minute. Any other commissioner have a comment? Mr. Finney?
Yes. If I may, I will take direction from your board member, and I will ask my folks to sit down and have a discussion with Mr. Brown. as requested. However, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that we're not being appreciated for the work that we attempted to do. We never said that Mr. Brown couldn't work on the project. We never closed the door on the other minority contractors. We embraced everyone and made work opportunity available for everyone. I don't apologize for that, but we will talk to Mr. Brown. But the fact of the matter is, he was not the lowest bidder on this one.
Mr. Feeney,
Yes, sir.
I know you guys keep business going all the time, all over the state. I would like it if you would talk to Mr. Brown, not only about this opportunity, but about other opportunities that you guys are working on and those that you'll work on in the future. All of them. And because, you know, we focus, just a minute, Mr. Brown, we focus on, you know, there's a focus on this one, but I think it would be great to have some focus, some continued relations after this. I'm going to let Mr. Brown speak. If no other board
Well, if I can I respond to that first, please?
Yes.
The answer is, for all our subs that perform, we like to migrate with them. It's very unusual for us to go through a public process in our typical HTG project, because not all of our projects are public housing authority projects. So on our other projects, we just pick the team that we're most comfortable with, that gives us a fair price, and we move forward. Now, we are always looking for MBE contractors to improve our numbers. We've always done it, and we will continue to do it. So yes to your answer.
So let me give you an example of what I'm saying. So to the point that Mr. Brown made earlier about a $90,000 discrepancy. So let's say that there was a $150,000 discrepancy from Mr. Brown and the person that got the bid. If we were negotiating a meeting halfway, because when you award someone in the contract, you're simply awarding them the contract. You can then go back and actually start to negotiate with them an even lower amount or higher amount for that matter. That's just the starting point. You're just selecting them. That's how you got through the selection process.
If I may, I've heard that happen, and I've actually participated in that type of process. But generally, if you get two bids in and you're comfortable with the lowest bid, then there's no need to negotiate with the one that's higher. We are comfortable with the lowest bid, so there was no need to negotiate. But as per your direction, we will sit down with Mr. Brown and see if we could find a way to get him more involved in the project.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Yes, and in all fairness, I do want to say, Mr. Finney did say to me, Mr. Brown, there is opportunity for you on some of our other projects. He did mention on the phone conversation that they had other projects going on over the next 10, I believe he said 10 to 14 months or 8 to 12 months. He did give me a range. He said that they did have other projects, and I'm grateful for that. I really am. But, you know, just like my mother always said, don't let your eyes get bigger than your stomach. I'm only focusing on this project. I'm not focusing on the other projects. I'm focusing on the one that's in my neighborhood where I live, work, and play. And, you know, I'm just asking for a fair shot. Now, Mr. Finney also said, well, Mr. Brown, we're working on, you know, negotiating a deal with you, with the other firm. You know, you'll be, you know, given a handsome contract. You know, he said all of that, and that's fine and great. But at the same time, just like I'm continually to say, is that if we're doing business and if there's a $90,000 to $95,000 discrepancy on the drywall bid, that's all public record now, because Randolph Construction submitted that bid via email and everybody saw the bid number, $744,000. He just said that he awarded D. Stevenson a contract for $850,000. That's over a $90,000 difference. How can you afford to give away $90,000 to someone if you're telling me that you're going with the lowest bidder? And so, you know, I hear Mr. Finney saying that, but at the same time, I'm uneasy because you're telling me so you went with the lowest guy, the drywall guy, you went with the higher guy, you didn't go with the lower guy.
All right. Before Mr. Finney, do you want to respond to that? If not, I'm going to make a comment.
Please make your comment, sir.
I appreciate what you guys have done. When we started this journey, we made very clear our intentions and what we wanted to happen for the residents in the city. And I got to tell you, you know, for me, maybe I'm hard to please, maybe I'm not seeing something, but the one thing I do know, I know the hearts and minds and soul of the commissioners. I know the heart, mind, and soul of the mayor. And even though we've had some turnover in some of those positions, in some of those elected positions, everybody feels the same way about those are things that we all can agree with, what we wanted to happen for the residents of this city. And for me, you know, I'm ready to just put a stake in the ground and stand on it in face of anything. It was extremely important for me. I mean, I can't tell you how important it was for me to see our guys get, you know, those contracts. You know, it was important the first time around, and it's even more important this time around because I wasn't totally pleased the first time, and maybe I'm hard to please, but again, I'm not totally pleased this time. And I understand you guys' point, but if we learn that it's true regarding the drywall contract, then I'll be arguing that, you know what, because it is not just your job, you have a team, so I'm not dumping everything on you by no means, so don't let that be a takeaway. But I'm saying that if we learn that there's almost $100,000 discrepancy on bid differences in one area of the contract, then I'll be arguing with you that's 100 you could have moved closer to. I don't know what Mr. Brown number is. I don't know what his difference is, but I would be saying that that's 100 that could have been put over here. And I would expect your company to know, because you're looking at them. And when you're choosing one over the other, based on what I'm hearing, because this is a bid process, you have them setting down in front of you on the desk. Everybody have a copy, and you're looking at one bid for the drywall versus bid number 2 or bid number 3 for the drywall, and you're choosing somebody. It's not like you got them one on the 17th, one on the 18th, and you didn't remember the number on the 18th, but you're comfortable with the number on the 17th, and so you just go with them, even though the number on the 18th may have been less. No, I'm sure you guys have been doing this for a long time. You're not throwing away money. I'm sure of that. And so I do think it would have been in your best interest, and certainly our best interest, that you looked at the electrical bid and said, you know what, I know we got a relationship with those other guys, but here's a hometown guy, and we could do something here. Because one thing we do know, we know that if he had you negotiate with him, I'm sure whatever that discrepancy is, he could have met you guys halfway. And then, as we now know, there's another almost $100,000 sitting over there. So put that on top of it, and I think we have a contract. I mean, am I seeing this wrong? I mean,
I will look into it, sir. I don't know if the math is that. I will look into it.
And I know you said that Mr. Hurt can come down and see those numbers. I'd like it if 1 or 2 board members would join Mr. Hurt.
According to my email, I invited the staff and the board.
Okay. Does any other
File.
board member have a comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Spears.
yes, I would just like to thank Mr. Finney for having an open mind and being willing to go back to his team and rethink this and maybe give Mr. Brown an opportunity to work on numbers with him and negotiate with him, because it is very important to the people of City of Riviera Beach and Tower Board to make sure that local minority Section 3 qualified contractors get the opportunity to participate as a regular contractor, not as a subcontractor sub, but as an actual subcontractor on the job. So we would appreciate it if you do that, and thank you for having an open mind.
And sir, I do appreciate that, but I do have to apologize for what I'm about to say. We will look at Mr. Brown as directed, but I do not want anybody to miss the fact that the majority of the MBEs that applied for work on this project got work. So if you look at it as though the glass is half full as opposed to empty, I appreciate that, because it took 12 months of hard work to get us to this.
Oh, I can appreciate that. I would like to see you get the glass 3/4 full.
Understood.
Chairman Jackson, may I?
Yes.
Yes, hi. So, you know, I spoke to, much like Mr. Brown, and spoke to Mr. Finney, had a couple conversations with him back and forth, and part of, you know, what he did say today, which was certainly true, that we had been in negotiations and still are in negotiations specific to the point of being, of having a project management position, whatever that may be. You know, quite naturally, you know, in terms of our negotiations in regard to the numbers, at least where that is concerned, as he's, you know, pointedly stated, you know, specific to me, that, you know, he doesn't know whether I'm necessarily interested in that. And I can confirm what he said. However, post our conversation today, when I received the email and I saw, you know, and this is not to pile on, I think Mr. Brown has said it, you know, he was going to mimic my comments exactly. You know, I was a bit disappointed when I saw that D. Stevens had a contract for $850,000 for the drywall, when in fact I had submitted a drywall bid for $744,000. You know, and that kind of just didn't sit well with me after the fact. On top of the fact that, you know, we also submitted 5 bids in 5 different trade disciplines on this particular project. You all know we participated on phase 1 with myself and Nubo together as partners. You know, turned you guys over a very nice project. Everything went very well. We did have a paid position on the project management team on phase 1 as well. No issues there. But, you know, when I saw what I saw today, I just, you know, it was a bit disturbing to me, you know, to know that we were $93,000 lower than somebody else, you know. And then when I kind of really thought about the whole thing, you know, after I saw that, you know, part of Mr. Finney and I's discussion in regards to the project management position, I think where we're having a disconnect is really about the dollars and what that particular position would support. And, you know, when you really look at it and think about it, if my drywall bid was accepted, you know, then there's enough money to even make up the difference from where we were just in talking about the project management position. So, and that's just in that one area alone. Mind you, now we submitted 5 bids, and I guess for whatever reason I was told we were high on all 5. You know, so to that point, you know, this is not to pile on or anything, you know, of that nature, but we spent a lot of time putting together 5 different disciplines, 5 proposals, and just to simply have a phone call to be told to say, you know, you too high. Well, what was the opportunity to negotiate? Who am I high in respect to? What am I high in respect to? That's why, you know, I was very pleased when you all sent out the email as a board, collectively as a board through Mr. Hurt, you know, to bring together the numbers to the table, which is I thought what would happen, you know, here tonight, that, you know, we would be kind of, you know at least what the numbers was, that, you know, who all the minorities bidded against. And, you know, all I saw, I just happened to see the drywall discipline out of the other, you know, what happened to the other four. So, you know, we were asked in part of the conversation also too with Mr. Finney, we were asked to bid another phase of the project, which I think that's where you referenced it, the 250,000 for, you know, and I just kind of just said, you know, I'm at this point, I just kind of got frustrated because I think we spent a lot of time, effort, energy, staff time in bidding these projects. And, you know, we're just at a position right now where, you know, we just kind of decline. And he is right. And I said respectfully decline. So, and to bid anything else concerning this particular project, because, you know, when I mentioned that to the staff today, you know, they kind of look at me sideways, like, you still chasing behind this, you know, after all we've done. So, you know, I definitely, if Mr. Brown's going to be afforded that opportunity, I definitely would like that opportunity to also too, to come and sit down with all 5 of my bids. And really, it's really more than 5 bids, because if you really look at it, because on 2 disciplines, we submitted multiple bids. When I say multiple bids, I mean bids that had, we submitted an exact bid per plan. We submitted value engineering of what we thought, you know, that we could do differently based on what the drawing said. And it has some significant savings in it. And we put a lot of time and effort and energy and money into that. And so, you know, just to be told you too high and that's it, I just, you know, I have to say that I'm a bit disappointed. To the point that Mr. Brown made also about Mr. Finney, that he talked about the relationships. I also had that conversation with Mr. Finney, and I agree with him. He is right. You know, we went through the entire first phase. I didn't necessarily have a relationship with him, to be quite frank and honest with you all. My relationship was with Gulf Building. You know, myself and Newbold were part of the only reasons that Gulf was even brought to the table in the beginning, from the beginning, because we brought the opportunity to them and they gave us the opportunity to partner with them and they rewarded us handsomely. So, you know, given all of that, you know, I just, much like Mr. Brown said earlier, and I'll close my comments off at this point. You know, I'd like to be more transparent, fair. At least if my bid is too high versus what somebody else's is, I have no problem bowing down. We do this all day, every day. Public bidding is what primarily 90% of my business is what we do. We do work for counties, the school districts. We're licensed, we're insured, we're bonded, the whole 9 yards. But, you know, I just think that this process could have been handled a little differently, to at least give me a comfort level. If you tell me my numbers is high and I'm looking at the numbers one next to the other, because, you know, and if that's the case, then I'm high and I'm gone, no problem. You know, we have a short memory when it comes to that thing in this business, because this is the business that we chose, and that's how it is. But at the same token, I don't want to feel like, you know, because when I saw what I saw today, you know, after speaking to Mr. Finney, you know, I was much said, I was very disturbed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We will revisit the Randolph issue as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Just a minute. I was going to ask, is there anyone else on the call, Mr. Finney, from your company?
Jason Larson's on the call.
Jason, how are you?
Jason?
Good. Hey, how you doing? Let me unmute. I'm doing very well, Mr. Chairman.
So you're hearing all of this?
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, I wasn't involved in the construction bidding really like Mr. Finney was, but just, you know, in general, making sure we have a fair bidding process is important to us. And, you know, also making sure that at the end of the day, we do get good pricing from everyone that's bid is important. It's become over the past 10 years kind of a big issue when doing public work like this with federal dollars, making sure the dollars are spent wisely. So, keeping all that in mind, I think, we'd certainly be happy to sit, I'd say sit down, but virtually sit down, I guess, these days with the staff and I guess the members of the board and go through all the bids and, let you know where everything shook out and kind of why things happened the way they did and see if we can make any adjustments.
Okay. Is there another commissioner on the call that wanted to say something?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make another comment. This HT first, I'm grateful that Mr. Finney made a valiant effort in trying to get minority business owners working with the project. However, I think that our goals were not as similar as it could have been. This is an HTG project in partnership with the Housing Authority. So in that case, this is not, I'm just inferring off of your comment that this is not a normal project. So it wouldn't be ideal for us to move with normal procedures. Since we are partners, our stakeholders are those who have vested interest in the city of Riviera Beach, meaning that you are a resident, you have a business in the city of Riviera Beach, you live, work, and play in the city of Riviera Beach. And based on the comments of the other commissioners, I'd like to say that we would at least love for everyone to have an equal opportunity to negotiate or to discuss where they went wrong, so that there could be transparency as far as these bids are concerned. And that's what I feel like there is a lack of communication on that part. And also when talks of relationship, I'm just trying to understand why, if relationship takes precedence, what is the purpose of the bid? That's all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your comments. And we will take that into consideration. But generally, in terms of relationships in all businesses, be it contracting, be it entertainment, or whatever we do, relationships are very important. And good relationships, and as you mentioned, good communications will prevent situations like this from occurring. We'll move forward.
Is there another commissioner wish to make a comment? Hurry, go ahead. Go back. You can pass.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. I'll also add to Mr. Finney's comment, especially in construction, where it's helpful if you know how an entity will perform if you've already worked with them. Sometimes you can end up, let's say, taking the absolute lowest bidder from somebody you haven't worked with before, and it could end up being, it can end up costing you twice as much, just because the entity wasn't able to perform or wasn't able to perform up to standard, and you had to replace them or supplement them. So I think that's why in construction sometimes a lot of emphasis gets placed on relationship while also making sure that we're getting the best pricing. Because again, we are dealing with public funding. We've got to be conscious that we're utilizing the dollars most efficiently. So,
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Spears.
Yeah, everybody keeps mentioning public funding, but part of that public funding is Section 3, and doing our best to make sure that Section 3 contractors, especially local contractors, get the job. That's as important as anything else on the job. And I would hope you would take that into consideration. And please have an open mind, and please talk to these two contractors and see what you can do. That would be greatly appreciated.
Agreed.
I think it's important.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
All right, guys. I know we're gonna bring this meeting to a close in a little. I'm gonna make these comments, and then Mr. Hurt, do you have anything to say before I make a comment?
Well, first of all, before I say anything, we do still have public persons in our meeting with us, Mr. Chair, and maybe you might want to ask if there's any other public comments out there. I see that we do have some council persons on and others. So, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was about to make a comment, and I was going to be addressing the council persons, so I will go to any of the council persons that want to say anything. I was about to invoke their name in my comment, their names, I should say. Well, not their names, but certainly their titles. Any commissioners? Mr. Hurt, can you call them out? Let me know who's on.
I had seen Councilman McCoy, Councilwoman Kashama
Miller Anderson?
Miller Anderson, and those are the two that I've seen.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, would you like to make a comment?
We will not be in our new space at Broadway and Blue Heron by September 30th of this year. We've included a timeline. There is a small typo in one of the dates for contract administration. We're anticipating that that building will be finished on or before January 1st of 2022. Our interim strategy is to continue to rent our current space, try to shorten the development timeline.
Still on her CRA meeting.
You're gonna have to put that on. You put that on mute.
Yes. My apologies.
Thank you.
You do have Green and Greener on, the landscape company.
Green and Greener, would you like to make a comment? Green to Greener, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Yes. Great.
Okay, I end up doing phase 1, and I know I've been going through the process. I gave it to HTG, and then somebody else contacted me from Newport Construction. So I did not feel fair with getting him my information. He emailed me, and I told him I'd get back with him. So right now, I don't know who I'm dealing with right now.
If I may, Newport Construction is the contractor. He's reaching out to Green and Greener because they got the landscaping contract, and it's just a matter of closing the paperwork now. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I just ain't want to get in no back and forth issues. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Is Mr. Russell on, Mr. Hurt?
Hey, Wesley,
Yes.
say hello to your mother for me. All right.
Okay.
Brian Finney said hello. All right.
Mr. Hurt?
Yes, Attorney Russell is on.
Attorney Russell, do you have a comment, sir? Attorney Russell?
We have a document from Mr. Finney, and it's regarding a contractor update, and I simply want to indicate for the record, for our record, that it should be July 22nd. It's July 23rd. I don't think we've gotten to that day yet. So for the record, this document is coming into us as a business document. It should be July 22nd. Is that right, Mr. Finney?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, this meeting was originally scheduled for the 23rd, and I was prepping for it, and it was moved. So I do apologize, and I will adjust that when I give you the signed copy. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Russell.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the only thing that I wanted to say is that I think the point was very well made. Number one, the Housing Authority being a partner with HTG, the Housing Authority has a Section 3 program. The Housing Authority advocated for our Section 3 qualified contractors. And one being Brown Electric, and I think it's very valid that he is a Riviera Beach resident and qualified Section 3 business, qualified minority business, and it would be a shame that, you know, phase 2 would go and we didn't have substantial participation from Riviera Beach based contractors. Greener, you know, participated in phase 1 and hopefully it participates on phase 2. But even though 1.5 million sounds like a lot of money, if you put that against a $12 to $14 million construction contract, I don't know that that's really anything to crow about. So I would hope that our partner will give consideration to what was said tonight. I'm glad that we had participation from Mr. Randolph, from Mr. Brown, I see Mr. Newbold on the line. He did not speak, but I'm glad we had the opportunity for these voices to be heard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Newbold, would you like to make a comment? Mr. Newbold. Mr. Newbold?
I think he left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davis, do you have a closing comment?
Yes. I think it was a good, frank discussion, very productive, healthy for both parties, and I think that hopeful that we can work out these differences and move forward expeditiously to build this project.
Thank you. You know, I want to say to you guys, Mr. Finney and your team, you know, I'm very appreciative of you guys, and we selected you guys in the first place. I was happy to have selected you as our contractor, and in my role on the board then, and now as chair, you know, I like you guys, but the vendors, the contractors that you've chose, I've known these guys for a long time, and I like all of them like family. These are all Palm Beach County guys, and the city of Riviera Beach haven't had a housing development, a substantial housing development in 35 plus years, and to have someone like Mr. Brown not get a part of that, you know, just like I mentioned about opening, you know, selecting someone, then opening the deal up and negotiating with him regarding Mr. Brown in particular, it was worth it to do, because here now we found out, and I think you're going to find out that you got a $93,000 discrepancy, and I don't see you guys throwing money away like that. I mean, and I'm calling it a discrepancy. I'm going to assume that we might learn that that situation is true, as Mr. Brown spoke of. You know, I would have preferred you guys negotiate with him and come back to us if you had to. Whatever we had to do to shake the leaves and get something done here, you know, regarding this. You know, it's important to have our guys be lead and be awarded these type deals, because we're not just setting them up to be a guy working for a guy. We want to set them up in a situation to have them be the guy and have them go on and have their business take off like some of the big boys, so to say. That's extremely important to us. You know, we have these conversations with the mayor and the city manager and the commissioners and all these people, and at times we have to go to those same people and ask for resources. And how are we to go to them and ask for resources? You know, they've stood in the gap for us before, and have them be willing and understanding who we are, and that we're going to hold developers accountable, and that they are going to choose our guys. You know, that was our stump speech. And it's not enough for me to hear, okay, you know, there's 9 guys came to the table. When we shook the leaves, only 4 of them submitted bids. I get that, and that's about right. That's about average when it comes to you know, minorities actually going the distance and putting in bids. But now we learned that Mr. Randolph put in multiple bids and you know, across the gamut. So, and to hear that, you know, things did not work out, I really, you know, I can't, we're not in the best position now because we have a contract with you guys. But if I was hearing, if I had a crystal ball and I saw this day and this message coming, guys, I tell you, for me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I love you guys, but we wouldn't be having this conversation. When we went through phase 1, we could not have been more clear about what we expected in phase 2. And I'm surprised that we're here. I'm surprised I'm surprised and disappointed that I'm learning this. I'm happy that you're willing to go back. I'm happy about that. I hope we go back and that everybody is made happy. You know, if I'm a guy like Mr. Brown, you know, I'm gonna it'd be more. I'm sorry. It'd be more important for me to be named to come in front than it would to get some work. And I'm sure he might be feeling the same way. Because when you go and you put your name on other projects and you,
I don't see you.
You're gonna
to let you in. And let me see if I can invite
Mr. Hurt.
So,
I'm sorry, guys.
yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, because now you're blocking the screen. Go ahead. Mr. Feeney?
I just said yes to what you were saying. I wasn't saying anything.
Okay.
So, what's your comments?
I don't have a real contact list, so it doesn't seem like I can invite you. Okay, keep trying. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hurt?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Who is that trying to get in?
That was Commissioner Thurman. She got kicked out and she couldn't get back in.
Okay. So, Mr. Feeney, so as I was saying, you know, I'm used to doing contracts, you know, although they're police contracts and things of that nature. And I've done others here at, you know, my homeowners association. And I've been doing them for, you know, like 3 decades. And so I understand, you know, selecting someone and then negotiating with them, you know, and these are fairly large contracts as well, that tip that $1 million mark. So I'm well aware of that, but I'm also aware of the importance to help minorities get in the game and be substantial players in the game. And whatever we would have had to do, if we could have had it communicated to us, even if you didn't communicate with Mr. Brown, to communicate back to the Housing Authority and say something before we make any bids known or before you guys make a decision. If we could have known before you made a decision what was out there, and because I think you guys understood where we were and where we were with our you know, the local guys, because that's why you guys are here. You're here because your stump speech was that you hear us, you will hear us, and you support our views. And I'm not sure that that's playing out right now. And I really hope that you guys go back and we can sit down and work this thing out. Mr. Hurt, I would ask that we go down. I'm going to ask one of the commissioners to join me, and Commissioner Spiritus. Commissioner Spiritus.
He's on mute.
Okay. Can you? I'm gonna.
You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, Mr. Spiritus.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to ask that me and you and Mr. Hurt have a meeting with any members from HTG that can, help us facilitate some of this stuff. And it's probably best that we meet before you meet with the contractors, Ms. Feeney, unless you want to meet with us all at the same time. I think you probably.
I mean, the purpose of our meeting will be to go look at the bid proposals.
Yes.
We can do that whenever we want to do that. And we can chew gum and walk too. So we will talk to the contractor.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Keep in mind now our government in the Sunshine Law.
It's not an issue. We're not voting anymore.
Oh, you're going to discuss an issue?
Yes, our meeting cannot be a sunshine meeting. Just a discussion. No action.
Well, I will post a meeting anyhow.
Yes, sir.
That's the best thing to do.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. President,
yes.
In all fairness, if you guys would like, if Mr. Hurt could provide y'all your email address, I will forward you guys my proposal. So that way you have my number and you could compare to whoever and whatever.
We have, that won't be necessary. We have your proposals. We'll give it to them. We'll give them the entire package. It'll be easier if I do it that way instead of piecemeal. But you can look at it to make sure what I gave is accurate, since we trust each other so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Finney.
So did any other commissioner have a comment? All right, Mr. Feeney, do you have a comment?
No, sir.
Okay, so Mr.
No, I do have a comment. This has been a good meeting. It's been informative. I think we raised a lot of issues. I think the glass is half full, and as the board member mentioned, let's get it 3/4 full. Let's move forward. Thank you for your time.
All right, Mr. Hurt, you have a comment?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to drill down to get a time and date for a meeting with the board members and HTG.
I think in light of our schedules, it would probably be sometime a week after next. I do know some people leaving town because we were trying to coordinate a meeting with Newport, so that's why I know what their schedules are. So let me get back to you tomorrow and give you some dates. Would that be okay?
Yeah, and I would like it. I'm starting to say that meeting might be by Zoom. I think we can facilitate a meeting in person. I don't know if we have to, unless you're going to forward us some documents and then we do it. I mean, however, whatever's most expedient, I'll be prepared to do it. I'm ready to drop everything and get to this business.
We can have a socially distanced meeting when we open up the files.
Okay.
That was my issue because once, I wanted some proprietary information and I want to keep that close. So we'll need to have a in-face meeting at a socially distanced location where we can go through the documents and have the discussion.
All right, Mr. Spiritus, you are free to join us when we do it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in New York. I won't be able to attend unless you do it by Zoom.
Okay.
So then if I may, Mr. Chair, let me go back and take a look at all the files. Maybe what we can do is do a summary of all the different contracts and then share it that way. As long as it's not in the public domain, I'd be more than comfortable with it.
Okay.
I think that's what we asked for initially.
You asked for a public disclosure. That's what you asked for initially.
We asked for a listing of the contractors.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah, that's an accommodation because of your board members are going to be traveling, but it's not so much the document, it's how we deliver it was my concern.
Gotcha. Okay, so again, I just want to thank everybody for coming on, being a part of this meeting tonight. And we have a lot of stakeholders and stockholders, Mr. Finney. It is imperative that we get someplace here. And again, I want to thank you guys and thank everybody for sharing their comments. And it's everybody's goal that we get past this issue. So let's get past it. I want to thank everybody again. And Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussions? Hearing none. Have all, aye?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
At
Good
what
night,
time?
everyone. Good night, and thank you.
Thank you,
At
everyone.
what time, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Hurt, it is 8:26.
Thank you, sir.
Meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Finney, and thank you for all who attended this evening.